Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Gavel Gang Podcast, an insight into the collections we get here at Ewbank's auction house in Surrey. Hi, Alastair. Here we are on another episode. What should we talk about this week?
Well, what have we got interesting that's coming up that you've been cataloguing this week at Ewbank's?
Well, I've been out on the road today and got some really interesting items. He came back here to Ewbank's with a car packed full of guitars in guitar cases. And they were from a chap down on the south coast. And he'd been, I think his whole adult life, he'd been a jobbing musician in function bands and whatnot. He built up a huge collection of guitars. And there are some really nice ones in there.
All right, what's the star lot you've seen in that collection?
It's one of two, and probably depends whether you are a guitarist or a bass player. But there's a really beautiful Fender Precision 1963 bass. I'm not dead sure what the colour is yet. Got to do a bit of research on that because, you know, they're very specific on these colours. But that's really nice. Might be pre-CBS. Need to just check that. I think that date will be. But that's a very nice item. Going to be quite high ticket price on that. The other one, which is going to be mine, is a Gibson Les Paul Cherry Sunburst. Not pinpointed the year yet. I know it was made in the early 70s. A bit like myself. I think it's somewhere between 70 and 73. And that's a Gibson Les Paul Custom. Very nice. Nice colour. Nice.
Do you consider yourself a bit of a budding guitarist then?
Oh, I do. And if it wasn't in that case there, I could give you a quick twang. But perhaps we'll get a video up at some point.
Yeah, we'll definitely do a video there, and they sounded really interesting.
Yeah, and there was others. There was a nice Stratocaster, there's Telecasters, things like that. And yeah, I think there were about 15 in all.
Okay, and how did the person get hold of them?
Well, I think that was interesting because I asked him a little bit about each guitar. We sat in his front room, went through all of them. Sadly, he's having to sell due to health reasons. Got to sort of give up. I think he's kept one back for himself. But he bought some new, some he bought, sold and bought back because, you know, that kind of musician network is a small world, so these things do the rounds, come back. Some were real bargains back in the day, like the Les Paul. And you tell me what he paid for that. With inflation, it's probably half the price it'd go for now. So some of these guitars really go up in value, as you can imagine.
So we're looking at some potentially making four figures at auction?
I mean, certainly that Les Paul has got to be, certainly be north of 3,000. I'm going to say 3 to 5, pending a bit more research. The bass actually probably even more, maybe 5, 6. Getting rarer, these instruments. Anything pre-1980 in guitars, the values have really gone up a lot in recent years. Yeah, and basses, I suppose there's actually less of those when you think about it. So maybe that's why the bass is worth even more.
Yeah, definitely put you on the spot there a bit with pricing.
You did.
I'll have to do a follow-up afterwards and see what how good your pricing is. I think
it's I'm pretty good. Pretty sure on those. I'm going to say, personally, I would give you $3,000 now for the Les Paul and run down the road, and I'd be.
I guess with guitars, it's a lot about condition, isn't it?
And these are pretty nice condition. Here's another thing. They're a little bit road worn, and you know, some crazing and the lacquer and whatnot. And the fellow who, when he said he got them out from under the bed after years, he was a bit disappointed that some had got some crazing, some that sort of tiny cracks in the lacquer. I said, actually, that's not frowned upon now. A kind of road-worn look, obviously not damaged, but just that sort of, patina or whatever you want to call it, is actually quite desirable now on those instruments. And in fact, a lot of new instruments have a pre-stressed kind of look. If you go into one of the big guitar shops, you pay more for us. It's like those distressed jeans that you used to get.
It's a bit like you and I, John. We have that distressed look that adds a bit of value to us, doesn't it?
That's what I like to think. So, that's my most exciting thing of the last week. What about yourself? What's coming up?
So what's coming up? I've been busy working on the Auction Rider collection, just finishing off the first part of it at the moment, so we're hoping to go live on that shortly, so that should be online. Again, that's mainly sort of posters, lobby cards, stills, that sort of thing, all James Bond related. That's all these things I keep seeing around the office that look quite exciting. I tend to be expanding all the time, so it's definitely taking over most of the office now, James Bond paper material.
Well, who better to take over the office?
Yeah, we've got the second batch that's just arrived on the ship.
Oh, right. These are coming from America.
Yeah, it's coming from America. So the heavier items, so we've got a lot of LPs, toys, merchandise. Yeah. They had to be shipped because of the weight. So that's coming in. That's just arrived in the UK. So I'll get my teeth stuck into that one over the next few weeks.
Well, we know you're a bit of a Bond expert. Any insight onto the next Bond or how they're going to revive the franchise?
There's a few rumours coming out at the moment, isn't there? There's rumours, isn't there? Christopher Nolan is
I haven't
interested
heard
in
that
being
one.
the next director.
Yeah.
I did hear a few rumours as well that maybe they're going to sort of go back in time and do maybe a prequel.
Oh, that would have been my
earlier.
guess after seeing the last one.
It's really hard to know. I think, though, the only thing is they haven't even, from what I can hear from the Broccoli's, is that they haven't even really discussed.
Yes, I read something to
yeah.
that effect in the paper recently. Yeah.
But then I also think with Bond, it's been 2 years since the last movie now, which was already delayed. It's going to be at least 2 years until they get something shot. So you're looking at 4 or 5 years minimum now. So it's quite a big gap between.
So don't hold your breath. So perfect time to go and look back at the old movies and
exactly.
buy some wonderful posters from that period.
So what about, have you done anything sort of outside of work that's interesting over the past few days?
I haven't, but tonight I am. I'm going to see a live performance of Spider-Verse, the movie, the first one, but with a live orchestra in London. So I'm looking forward to that. I've never seen a film with a live orchestra. I think
especially with a sort of comic animation style.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting.
It is. I think it's at Hammersmith Apollo. I better find out as I'm going tonight. So see if we can nick a couple of posters from outside.
That should be good.
Well, I think that wraps us up for another episode, and perhaps I think we'll be hearing from you next with an interview.
Yes, I'm going to do an interview with Steve Oxenrider.
Great.
He's going to tell us a bit about the collection, how he got into Bond, and how he started collecting, and maybe some tips for some of the Bond collectors of the future.
Great, and maybe he knows about the next Bond.
He might know more than me.
Well, we'll tune in and find out. Thanks, Alastair.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Gavel Gang Podcast. If you've enjoyed what you've heard, please subscribe and take a look at the Ewbank's website for more information on this and upcoming auctions. Until next time, going.